Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar for recovery coaches. Today's webinar is Developing the Art of Discovering and Managing Your Stuff. Thanks for being here. If you look at the cover sheet for this particular webinar, it shows the Recovery Coach Academy Recovery Stool. And on that stool, we identify the recovery coaching fundamentals are treating people as resources critically, actively listening, and asking good questions. And the middle leg of the stool, which is highlighted, is the focus of our work this morning, discovering and managing your stuff. Normally when we identify a topic for webinars, it's an opportunity for Stacy and I to come together, and she usually posits the thought, and I usually run with it. And you think about it, we haven't really talked about discovering and managing your stuff, even though it's a critical part of this Recovery Coach Academy stool. And in discovering and managing our stuff, the initial piece of that is, what does that mean to you? What I'm going to offer you in the course of the next hour in this webinar, in treating you as resources, but also helping you to appreciate this is about you and it's not about me, I want you to be able to think about your stuff. And in thinking about your stuff, please think about it in the context of the science, with quotation marks around it, that I've developed over the 38 odd years that I've been doing the work of helping others, and especially over the last probably 15 years or so since my own practice has evolved into an opportunity to share what I've learned. And the science for me is a science of identifying, okay, what tools do I use in order to be aware of my stuff, in some levels to uncover my stuff, and most importantly, to manage my stuff as I'm working with others. So with that in mind, please think about, I'm offering you a peek at me developing my art of discovering and managing my stuff. And hopefully this offers you an opportunity to take a peek at your own science, which hopefully you will develop into your own art of discovering and managing your own stuff. Does that make sense? And the sense that I'm trying to make out of it is that this is about you, it's not about me. So as we move forward, please feel free to make comments. The comments that you make will be comments that I'll embrace as they show up, but clearly I'll move along as we talk, as we explore this very powerful topic. So in discovering and managing your stuff, for me, the webinar learning questions, many of you, these may look like webinar learning objectives. The first piece of that is, what is your stuff? Anybody want to take a shot at that? What is your stuff? We've been talking about discovering and managing your stuff in the context of Recovery Coach Academy, and that middle leg of the stool has always verbalized discovering and managing your stuff. When you read that, when you look at that, when you explore that, how are you identifying your stuff? Phil says, my perspective of whatever situation or landscape I'm viewing, my bias in the way I view things, my biases. What might be some of the biases? What might be some of the views that you may have as you are coaching recovery? Or as Phil's perspective, as you are in your situation or viewing what you're viewing that's in front of you. And the other part of the question is, when you talk about what is your stuff, there's a piece of me that questions, so many times when I've looked at this in the past, I've looked at my stuff as possibly being something that gets in the way, something that's a limitation, something that might be a barrier. And yet, when I really expand my view of my stuff, it can be positive, negative, or neutral. Think about that. So what is your stuff as we begin this opportunity to explore? And please give yourself the opportunity to explore. I would encourage you as these learning objectives and questions come down, I would encourage you as we move through this process, jot notes to yourself. Think about what you're thinking about because this is really about you. And this isn't about me and my stuff and how I've discovered my stuff. That's just a template or an opportunity for you to take a look at the concept. My stuff is a culmination of my experiences and that knowledge. Yeah, I can align with that, Lori. That makes big sense to me. My worldview, the assumptions of what is good for me may be good for you. Right, or is also what might be bad or what might be neutral. Um, Identifying the ingredients. Yeah, what comes together as I sit with another human being in my curiosity on how I am going to best help them that impacts how I sit with them and how I am with them. To identify the ingredients. Yeah, when I'm thinking about what my stuff is, what are the ingredients? What are the components that come together that connect me with, that have me be curious with another human being that I'm trying to help? Good stuff, folks. Thank you. Continue to type. I'll continue to take a look at what you're offering, but also want to continue to work through this webinar. So when you think about what is your stuff, how do you describe or label what you are aware of as your stuff that's to be uncovered, discovered, and managed in your role as a recovery coach? What is your stuff that is important to be uncovered, discovered, and managed in your role as a recovery coach? Is it part of my responsibility to do no harm? I believe so. Is it part of my responsibility not to hurt, i.e., HURT, harmful undermining of my responsibility to the recovery that I'm working with? These are questions to be asked of yourself as you make an honest effort to discover and at some level manage your stuff. What is your stuff? Telling your truth. And please tell your truth without blaming or judging your awareness or your knowledge of what your stuff is. Do appreciate that you might be limited in your awareness or your knowledge of your stuff. Donna writes, hello, Art. My stuff recently has been my negative feelings regarding the level of empathy towards consumers. I am often distracted by the healthcare providers and hamper my ability to be thorough or give the care that I feel vital. Wow. So in describing your stuff, Fiona, are you saying that you are limited by what you perceive to be negative feelings, that you might be giving too much power to healthcare providers that you feel that are hampering your ability to take care of what you need to take care of? And if that's some of your stuff, how is that stuff impacting your ability to truly provide care in a relationship with others that may not allow the care to be what you want it to be? That's a very powerful example, Fiona. Thank you. Tell your truth, folks, without blaming or judging yourselves. I think that's the way of our ability to co-problem solve. It offers an opportunity to really put our truth, and many times, as I'm thinking about it right now, our stuff on the table where it needs to be, where it really needs to be. And also, my ability to manage and discover my stuff, I believe, is also my ability to better help the people that I'm making an honest effort to help to do the same for themselves. It's almost like another part of my modeling. And it's not that I spend a lot of time talking about my stuff in my interactions with recoveries, but I'm clearly aware of it. And there have been times when I've shared that, is the best way that I could put that. I'm going to continue. My stuff is a lack of self-esteem and managing boundaries and support and trainings. And can you balance that piece of stuff, which is talking about a lack and which is talking about a challenge in managing boundaries and supporting in support? When you think about that stuff, can you balance it with stuff that you bring that is fuller, that is more helpful? Again, as we talk about our stuff, Jeff says, as a recovery coach, being mindful about your stuff and aligning with your guideline for domains. Interesting. Interesting. This is one of my favorite diagrams, and I think there are people who say, well, all my diagrams are favorite diagrams. But again, folks, as I think about what I need to think about, this came up, and what it really talks about is an opportunity to look at the total of our knowledge. And here it is talking about things. When you look at the pie, if you look at that blue piece that starts at the top, it says awareness. Our awareness has two pieces to it. It's that red piece of the pie that says things you realize you don't know. And our awareness are also things you realize you know. And look at how slim that piece of the pie is. Yeah, we don't know what we don't know. And this is a part of the call for humility as we do this work. It's about being wide open to an opportunity to gain some knowledge and some wisdom. And at some level, not working hard not to hold on to our stuff, which may put a block to that. So when I think about this, think about the sliver of the pie, the things you realize you know, how slim that is. And then the sliver of the pie, the things you realize you don't know. And that's a good chunk of the pie. It's almost a quarter. But then you look at that big yellow piece, things you realize you don't know. I think that's a part of what I want to be open to. Because as I explore this concept of discovering and uncovering my stuff, I need to be firmly open to the fact that I don't know what I don't know. And if I can't get there, it's very hard to truly be where I need to be. The more I learn, the less I know. Yeah. And yet, the more I learn and the less I know, the more I'm curious. And I think discovering and managing my stuff is the epitome of curiosity. It's the epitome of being open to the prospects of what I know and what I don't know and how I get to know it. Lori says the image definitely lends itself to staying the right size. Ooh, nice. I like that. See, that's one of the powers of these collaborative learning opportunities, especially when you all engage yourselves in the process. I learned so much, and I think we all learn a lot. And that's what this has to be about, because even in talking about discovering and managing your stuff, it may be your stuff, but some of that stuff is shared stuff. And as we talk about the stuff, I think we all become more enlightened relative to what it is, but more importantly, how to manage it. So again, I'm offering this piece, helping you to think about how I think about my stuff, but in reality, I also hope you think about your own. That's a static picture of what is knowable too. All is changing so fast. Even what I think I know passes so quickly. Yeah, and for me, Reverend, that's why I find myself, it's critical for me to be a constant learner, doer, and teacher. And so when things do change, I'm in the process of engaging myself in at least being open to that in that process of change. Discovering and managing your stuff. Webinar learning questions continued. How might you be in denial regarding your stuff? How might you be in denial regarding your stuff? When I talk about denial, is your denial don't even notice it's a lie, meaning that I am not being honest, even though I'm recognizing that I have some stuff? Do I deny? Do I push aside? Do I not engage myself in the process of understanding that stuff? Do I notice it's a lie? And in noticing it's a lie, do I perpetuate the lie or do I try to find the truth? So my denial might be regarding my stuff might be I'm limited. I'm lying. It's my stuff. I don't want to acknowledge it's my stuff. And folks, that also applies to positive or what might be helpful stuff. Because there have been times where in my own lack of self-acceptance and awareness of what I bring to a situation. Sometimes I put limitations on my stuff by denying that my stuff has power, has potential to help. So there's this double-edged sword there. So the denial is not only don't even notice it's a lie, but when you talk about denying my stuff, the denial also might be don't even notice I am limited. And what that speaks to is that I may be limited in my ability to acknowledge and to be aware of having stuff. Or I might be limited in my ability to appreciate what my stuff is and apply it in my relationships, and especially in my coaching piece. This particular image was inspired by a recovery coach class, Tortilla, in 2017. It was in Iowa where we did this in April. And the denials of limitation came through as we were having a conversation, so I mapped it out. And it says, don't even notice I am limited. And when we talk about don't even notice I am limited, what we're talking about is I may be limited in my attention to my stuff. I may be limited in the courage to change the things that I can relative to my stuff as I'm discovering it. I may be limited in my willingness to take action on my stuff, to be responsible for my stuff, to hold myself accountable for my stuff, to have a commitment to truly address my stuff and help my stuff to be the best that it needs to be in relation to the relationships that I'm looking to build and the processes I'm helping to guide and support. Don't even notice that I'm limiting my awareness of my stuff. So many times we are so damn busy that, even if an awareness floats through our minds, we don't capture it or grab it. And is there limitations to the acceptance? And this is the critical piece. Even when I'm appreciating that I might be limited in my stuff, am I limited in my acceptance of my stuff? So appreciate the limitations of denial. Appreciate that denial can be both I might be lying or I might be limited. Yeah, I find it so too. For me, it's an opportunity to really think about my stuff. Thinking about denial. And again, folks, this is an opportunity to tell our truth without blame or judgment and to be open to the outcome of this discussion without being attached to it. Before I say, no, I have no denial, be open to what this is saying. Denial. What is it? Denial is a problem that tells us that we don't have a problem. So in the midst of experiencing a problem many times, we act as if or we verbalize, it's not a problem. I can handle that. That's not my problem. It's a problem that says we don't have a problem. Denial distorts our awareness of the way things really are. It distorts our awareness of the way things really are. So if I'm either lying or limited in my denial, I'm distorting my awareness of what's really there in front of me. Of course, denial can be a defense mechanism. Denial is the first part of the grieving process. It defends us against the power of a loss. When my mom died, I went into instant denial because I did not want to appreciate the shock of the loss of someone so clear to me. So it defends against the pain. It defends against the shock of a loss, especially when we're talking about the grieving process. Denial affects the way we think, feel, believe, and relate. Think about that. It affects the way we think, feel, believe, and relate. So I'm sitting in a session with recovery, and my own denial comes through in relation to stuff that's going on inside of me. It affects the way I'm thinking about the relationship that I'm building. It affects the way I feel about myself and the person I'm working with, what I believe, and how I relate to them. That's why it's so important for us to think about these issues, especially in relation to how denial impacts the middle leg of our stool, i.e., the ability to discover, uncover, and some level manage our stuff. Denial doesn't put us in a position to discover and uncover. It puts us in a position of just moving along and affects the way we think and feel critically. Denial affects our thinking in very specific ways. We lie to ourselves through self-deception and blame. Self-deception has us believe things that are false and unreal. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Ben. Blame insists that we find fault with people, places, and things. So part of my stuff is I deceive myself into believing things that are not real, things that are false. And part of that self-deception and denial, and particularly, it puts me in a position where I blame people, places, and things for my situations. Denial can be a coping mechanism of past adverse experiences. Clearly, it can, John. And that's the danger of it, because if I've not discovered that stuff that has been a coping mechanism in relation to past adverse experiences, then I'm not working with or dealing with my stuff. And that's a critical part of what I need to do in order to uncover and discover it. Blame insists that we find fault with people, places, and things. So denial affects how we think. And in affecting how we think, it also affects how we feel, what we believe, and how we relate to others. And I truly don't want denial sitting in the middle of that relationship that I'm looking to build with recoveries. The question is, are denial and delusion part of the same family? What do you think? What do you think, Jeff? When you think about denial and you understand how you understand denial, and you think about delusion, are they the same? Not something I've thought a whole lot about, but think about that. Love the questions. Is self-awareness the opposite of denial? Possibly, if I am not allowing myself to be aware of myself, or in that self-awareness, I deny aspects of who I am that are okay. You know, when I became aware of my power, I wasn't always willing or even able to exercise my power because I felt limited and powerless in relation to what I felt would be my impact in sharing what I was learning or sharing who I was. In denial, we accuse people, places, and things outside of ourselves for our problems in living. That's a big piece of denial. And for me, that denial gives my power away. That denial puts me in a position where my self awareness says that I cannot be the best that I can be unless I have people, places, and things outside of myself validating me or, or making me feel that I'm okay. I'm dating myself, but I don't know if you remember Hogan's Heroes, and this is Colonel Clink. And Colonel Clink says, I know nothing. That's his denial. But again, it goes back to that image we saw earlier, things you don't realize you don't know. Denial, acceptance. Somebody asked the question, is self-awareness the opposite of denial? And when this particular image shows that we move from acceptance to awareness, or we move from awareness to acceptance, and that can be blocked by denial. Denial is a breeding ground for latrogynous, from the Greek word brought forth by the healer. Ooh, I like that. Yeah. Don't even notice I am living. I know nothing. Ways of denial. Again, I'm probably sharing what you already know, but in sharing what you already know, I'm hoping you'll teach it to others and appreciate that you know it. Ways of denial. And again, as you think about your stuff, as you think about the potentialities or the potential denials that you may or may not have, are any of these included? Again, this is an opportunity to perhaps uncover, perhaps discover some of your stuff that you may not have been thinking about before you came into this webinar. Ways of denial. We refuse to face reality. We refuse to face the facts. We minimize the facts and reality. We avoid reality by sleeping, working, and distracting ourselves. We blame someone else or something else for our problems in living. Ways of denial is we believe we can control the problem, when in reality, it is out of control. When in reality, we have no control. Procrastination is a way of denial, of avoiding reality as well. And how many of us identify ourselves as being master procrastinators? Ways of denial are rationalizing, making excuses and reasons for the problem. Ways of denial are exaggerating someone else's behavior to make our own behavior seem normal or acceptable. I did a lot of that in my active drinking. And when I think about that, I have to be careful not to look at someone else's behavior as being out of place or as being the lack of a norm in order to make my behavior better. Let me go back to that and make sure refusing to, ways of denial. Again, the ability to think about the ways of denial is the ability to begin to think about a science of how I begin to describe and identify some of my stuff. And I'm using denial right up front because I think that's the biggest place where we can be in a position where denial happens. Again, we go back to that diagram. On the left-hand side, relative to our awareness, denial distorts your awareness of the way things really are. So even with the things you realize you don't know, denial affects that area of your life as well. Things you realize you don't know, you may think you know. And things you realize you don't know, you may think you don't need to know. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. When you realize the things you don't know, denial is a problem that tells you that you don't have a problem. Denial affects the way you think, feel, behave, and relate, as we said earlier. So again, denial is a very, very powerful concept to be thought about as we uncover and discover and become curious and about our stuff and how our stuff is affecting the relationships we're looking to build. Many times in my own recovery process, and I just yesterday I heard someone talking about the wall that they built up in active addiction. I think at some level we can all identify with that. This is one, again, it's a powerful image that I created years ago as I was having discussions with people I was making an honest effort to help about denial and the concept of who they are and how they are in the world. So we talked about building a wall of denial. And I tried to get to help people. I tried to get the participants in the group that helped me to build this wall of denial to think about what is it that makes up this imaginary wall that we talk about that blocks us from the things that we need or learn or need to learn to grow. Yeah, you'll see that, Reverend. You'll see that. So when you think about the building a wall of denial, denial creates a way of thinking, believing, and living that causes us to defend and justify our right to cling to our attachments, our addictions, our actions, and our attitudes, even though these attachments, addictions, actions, and attitudes may be hurting us or others. Denial creates a way of thinking, believing, and living that puts us in a position that may hurt others. That's why this whole concept of discovering and managing my stuff is so critical, especially if my stuff is being fueled through denial. And again, the denial may give me a sense that I'm limited in my ability to help, and I'm limited in my ability to hurt. And both of those may or may not be the truth. The behaviors that we must give up are the building blocks of our wall of denial. What this says is in order to get past denial, I need to give up how and my wall has been built. And I'm going to try to give you a sense of how I've experienced my own wall and how people I've recoveries or helpies, as I call them before recovery coaching, are building their walls. These behaviors are the habits, routines, and rituals that we have practiced to the point that they have become a way of living. They have become second nature. These behaviors are the habits, routines, and rituals that we have practiced to the point that they have become a way of living, they have become a way of being, they have become our way of interacting. And that's what, again, makes them so powerful and so powerfully important that we find a way to address them. So when you think about the wall of denial that builds, the wall of denial building supports. What supports the wall is our feelings. Our feelings are the foundation of the wall. What supports the wall are our beliefs. Our beliefs are the mortar or the cement that hold together the bricks of the wall. And the bricks of the wall are our behaviors. So our feelings, our beliefs, and our behaviors compose this wall of denial that has such an opportunity to block or limit or cause us to lie and deny that these issues are an issue. There's a wall of denial. If you look at it, the foundation of the wall are the feelings. And Reverend Phil, fear is certainly one of those feelings. The bricks of the wall are our behaviors. What we do, how we behave, either solidifies or disintegrates the wall. It's a very vulnerable feeling to agree to dismantle this wall. Yes, it is. Think about how this wall has helped us as much as it may have hurt us. Again, I put up that wall of denial when my mom died to protect me from the shock of the loss. I put up the wall when I fear being vulnerable. I put up the wall when I fear that I am not good enough, when my shame is so predominant in my living. I put up the wall when I'm afraid. And I put up the wall. So, and again, this is going to offer you an opportunity to think about, okay, do I got a wall going on? And what is it that's perpetuating this wall? Because what I'm hearing is that in order to begin to knock this wall down, I have to stop doing what I've been doing, i.e., those behaviors, which helps me to begin to impact the beliefs that I've had about what I'm doing that are so perpetuated by the feelings that add to what I'm doing. So let's take a look at how a couple of groups have helped me to fill in this wall of denial as they've experienced it. When you look at the mortar or the beliefs that sustain or support the wall of denial, start at the top. The mortars, the beliefs that sustain the wall are people should act the way I think is right. I'm responsible for making everyone else happy. I must be in control. Threatening situations have to keep me worried. Bad experiences in my childhood still have control in my life. People must love and approve of me. Self-discipline is too hard to achieve. Making mistakes is terrible. People should be condemned for their wrongdoings. My emotions can't be controlled. Whew. What a belief system. And what a belief system to take into a hopefully honest and open relationship with another person. I'm pretty sure you can't, Phil. But think about that. This is what keeps this wall together, our beliefs. And again, in order to stop getting what we've been getting, we have to let go of these beliefs or transform these beliefs. Let's take a look at what the building block of this wall relative to the bricks, i.e. the behaviors that sustain or support the wall. I manipulate, I violate, and I disrespect. I attack and I reject. I defend. I stuff feelings. I obsess. I isolate, i.e. I disconnect. I avoid or I escape. I blame. I control. I deny. I caretake. I people please. I react. I lie. And many times I might be dishonest. Those are the behaviors that support the wall of denial. And are any of those behaviors going on in my own self as I'm practicing my important work of coaching recovery? And again, folks, it's not about being a bad thing. It's about being a discoverable thing. It's about being a thing that we can be curious about. Yeah, so many negative terms on one page, but appreciate what we're talking about. We're talking about a concept, a wall that blocks our ability to grow and learn. So, of course, it's full of negative. And the foundation of this wall are my feelings. And those feelings a couple have already been posited. Fear, anger, false pride, pain, shame, guilt, inadequacy, low self-esteem, depression, anxiety, envy, self-pity, loneliness, vulnerability, I don't care, and confusion. And those are just a few. This is the challenge of functioning functionally in dysfunction. Living with these feelings, not acting on these feelings and behaving on these feelings in a way that limits my ability to make connections with other people or even to help other people. And at some level, being able to appreciate the beliefs that these feelings generate and therefore the behaviors that they create. The wall of denial. Let's talk about getting over denial, because that's also beginning to talk about, as we discover and uncover our stuff, how do we begin to better manage our stuff? And our ability to manage our stuff is our ability to get over denial. To break down the wall of denial, we must discover and manage the feelings, beliefs, and behaviors that support the denial. So if any of those pieces, the feelings, beliefs, and behaviors that support the denial, you can identify within this image, hopefully they're giving you a picture of where you might want some more self-discovery or where you might want some management to go on. Clearly, this is my stuff that we're thinking about, but it may also be your stuff. And I'm not going to judge that, and I'm not going to impose that on you, because I'm not going to should on you. However, I do want you to be open to the prospect that there's some denial that's going on, a wall that truly is alive, that is impacting your stuff. So in getting over denial, we want to break down the wall by discovering and managing the feelings, beliefs, and behaviors that support denial. Denial may begin in our thinking and feeling, yet recovery begins with changing our behavior. That's where the transformation must occur. I can't think my way or feel my way into a new way of being. I have to behave my way into a new way of being. I have to do the work. If you want to stop getting what you've been getting, you must stop doing what you've been doing. How simple, how powerful, how complicated. But for me, folks, this is where the rubber meets the road. In order for me to, once I've uncovered and discovered my stuff, it's up to me to begin to manage it better. And if I want to stop getting what I've been getting, I've got to stop doing what I've been doing, and I've got to take a real honest look at what I've been doing. Discovering and Managing Your Stuff webinar learning questions, ongoing. What is your stuff? How might you be in denial regarding your stuff? Any discoveries in this last piece that we did? How do you name the stuff that affects your performance as a recovery coach? Positively, neutrally, or negatively? Again, I want to remind us that our stuff can be positive, neutral, or negative. And in all cases has the opportunity to enhance or take away from building relationships that work. How do you address your stuff that might be having a negative or unhelpful effect? And how do you manage your stuff? That's what this is about. Folks, if I'm going to actively listen, if I'm going to ask good questions, if I'm truly going to treat people as resources, if I'm going to truly buy into the fundamentals of coaching recovery, I must discover and manage myself. It's an ongoing curiosity for me. I can feel it sometimes, and my stuff is getting in the way. And then there are times when my stuff is so solidly entrenched in me that that feeling does not happen. It doesn't come up. Okay, this is an opportunity to think about beyond the denial stuff, to think about got stuff. And again, I'm offering in the context of what I've looked in the past that this is also a way to think about managing my stress. So much of, oh gosh, discovering and managing my stuff is also discovering and managing my stress. And I've got to call it for what it is. So when you think about your stuff, do you have stuff relative to your sense of your own personal power? What that speaks to is how confident are you in your ability to meet any and all challenges in coaching and living recovery? Are you in complete control, fully confident, or are you helpless, depressed, insecure, doubting, or powerless? Appreciate, folks. This is a continuum, but it's a continuum that speaks to your personal power. How powerful are you feeling in relation to being confident in your ability to meet challenges as they come up? Is that some of your stuff? Is your personal power powerful, or is your personal power experiences you as being powerless or powerlessening? Another way to look at it, your stuff might be in the area of being adaptable. How well do you shift direction and try different ways to meet challenges? Are you flexible, accepting, committed to learning? Or is your stuff that you're rigid, unwilling to change or grow, or uncommitted to learning? Folks, I've really come to the place where if a person doesn't have a commitment to learning, I am really challenged to be able to help them. But that also has to be true for myself. And there's an ongoing process of learning about who I am and how I am as I offer the support and the care that I offer. And so this piece about the adaptability really speaks to my flexibility versus my rigidness. Is my stuff that I'm flexible and open and accepting, or is my stuff that I'm rigid, unwilling to change or grow, just being what I've been? Talking about your stuff. I've accepted confidence is coming to understand that I'm a child of God, and humility is accepting that so is everywhere for you being. I like that. I like that. I found that accepting my humanness allows me to accept the humanness in others. I agree. My humanity is humanity shared. Think about situation mastery. How well do you take care of your life situations with patience, reasonable expectations, pacing, and setting priorities? Are you able and willing to practice care in all areas of your living? Or are you constantly trying to change people, places, and things that you cannot control or change? Folks, this is my experience early in my efforts to help. I wanted to change people, and I felt that the most powerful thing that I brought was the ability to control or change what I had no opportunity to control or change. The real challenge here is to be patient, have reasonable expectations, pace myself, and set priorities. Am I willing to do that? Or am I trying to change the unchangeable? Is that my stuff? Your stuff. Is your stuff related to time management? How well do you use and occupy your time? How well do you organize your life? And it's also a reflection of how well you might help someone else to organize theirs. In my role as a lifestyle consultant, that's a critical aspect of the work. My stuff is that I'm disorganized, procrastinating, limited, have minimal participation in living, and inactive. How am I going to offer to another human being the opportunity to be well organized, time oriented, participating in living, and being actively involved in living? If you look at this, we bring to others what we bring to ourselves first. So again, in the realm of stuff, if my stuff is what it is on the right-hand side, my stuff isn't healthy or helpful for a human being looking to grow and change. Got stuff? Is your stuff relative to your ability to be compassionate? How capable are you in empathizing with others, seeing their point of view, recognizing their strengths and their limitations? Are you compassionate, empathetic, caring, or are you resentful, bitter, uncaring, and lacking empathy? And folks, this compassion piece isn't necessarily something that I'm doing 24/7. Sometimes this compassion piece, when I'm looking at my own stuff, sometimes I have more compassion for some people and less compassion for other people. And I don't believe that's right. I don't know, it's almost a sense of lacking empathy and uncaring. And I think we live in an environment now where empathy is such a premium. However, I can still practice compassion, empathy, and caring. Much of my compassion is toward my own struggle to manage my stuff and not let my stuff get in the way. Stuff is about connection. How well do you feel connection and relatedness and unity with yourself, others, and the larger issues of living? In that context of connection, do you feel alienated, detached? Are you isolating? Are you disengaged or disconnected? Folks, I can remember early in my efforts to help, I would do those. I would alienate, I would isolate, I would disconnect in my own time, and that never was healthy for me. And yet that was a piece of my stuff that I thought I should be able to do because I'm doing all this good work for other people, and I got to take care of myself as well. So when I think about connection, I work at being motivated, connecting with other human beings, and connected to a larger purpose. And that larger purpose, especially when I'm coaching recovery, is that it's about the recovery and it's not about me. It's about their process and their progress and not mine. So my stuff can be around connection or disconnection. My stuff can be around feeling alienated and detached. And again, that can float and that can go up and down and back and forth. Got stuff? Is your stuff in the realm of expression and self-expression? Are you open to expressing yourself and willing to be vulnerable and intimate? Remember, intimacy is into me, you see. What is your willingness to be vulnerable and intimate in expressing yourself? So there's a terrible typo. Or are you internalizing and protecting feelings and keeping feelings hidden into yourself? The expression piece speaks to how well do you express your feelings and share intimately with others? How well do your feelings and your behaviors match? There goes back again to knocking down that wall, addressing the feelings and the behaviors that keep that wall alive. But in this particular piece, the wall is really being built if I am internalizing and protecting my feelings. And this can come up at any time. This could come up at any time. This could be a major part of my stuff. Be aware of the here, take my advice. I'm not, I like that interaction. Yeah, be aware of that. Take my advice says that I'm the captain of the ship. Take my advice says that I know better than you know. Take my advice says that, you need to take heed to what I have to say. And again, that's my stuff. That's not helpful. That's not treating a human being as a resource that they deserve to be treated as. The world is divided. Your problems and mine. Willingness is the key. Do more that makes your soul shine. Yeah, it is so much about soul for me. Strengths, overcoming, unmanageability, and limitation. That's how I think about soul. S, strengths. O, overcoming. U, unmanageability and limitation. My stuff can take the form of the unmanageability of my life that might come into my efforts to help myself and others, as well as the limitations that presents for me. And many times, self expression tends to be a very difficult one, especially in a world where we're all trying to figure out how do we functioning into dysfunction, i.e., the fear and the pain of the world. And folks, it's not easy to live through the dysfunction. And so I think that the discussion or the conversations about discovering and managing our stuff are critical because I want you to keep in the forefront of your minds that as a result of the environments that I'm in, I may be affected. I may be being affected by stuff that I thought that I had some level in the past have overcome. Show up. Speak your truth. Pay attention to what's heart and meaning for you. And be open to the outcome and not attach the outcome. Yeah. I think we put the fun in functional by functioning as well as we can and appreciating that we are doing the best we can. This piece offers you an introduction to how I think about discovering and managing myself in the context of what, again, if you've been around me long enough, the fourfold way of living. Fourfold Way of Living by Andres Arian. Walking the paths of the warrior, healer, teacher, and visionary. One of my favorite teachers, Andres Arian. Got stuff? Relative to the way of the leader, how well do you show up and choose to be present to access your power, your presence, and your communication? I am present. I am communicating. I am willing to take a stand. I am embracing my power. Or I am rebellious. I'm hiding or holding back. I'm working behind the scenes. I'm riding the coattails of powerful people. How do you lead? Or do you lead? The right-hand side speaks to non-leadership. It really speaks to the dark side of leadership, where we feel that we are leaders as a result of hiding, holding back, and riding the coattails of more powerful people. Got stuff? The way the caretaker says, how well do you pay attention to his heart and meaning for you as well as another human being? Folks, when I actively listen, I am actively paying attention to it as heart and meaning for another human being. If I don't do that, then I got stuff going on that's getting in the way. The way of the caretaker is practicing attitudes and actions that maintain personal health and support the well-being and welfare of our community and our environments. Or the flip side of the way of the caretaker is the four addictions. And the four addictions are addiction to intensity, the addiction to perfection, the addiction to the need to know, and the addiction to what is not working rather than what is working. Be careful. I think some of my stuff still embraces the dark side of the way of the caretaker. The way of the caretaker is really the way to love. And many of us have sought love through our addictions. The intensity, the perfection, the need to know, leaning on what is not working rather than what is working, are all ways to be opposite of love and care. Is that my stuff? Is some of my addiction or some of my addictive behaviors or attitudes or feelings still left over in the context of what this is about identifying? We talked earlier about many of us still struggle with perfection. Am I addicted to intensity? Am I addicted to needing to know? Or can I sit back and just be open to the outcome and not attached to it? Way of the visionary. How well do you tell the truth without blame or judgment? How well do you tell the truth without blame or judgment? Yeah, addiction to intensity. I think in many ways that's what breeds the addiction to the relationships we have with drugs and alcohol. Think about the addiction to the intensity. We look at in the realm of adolescence. Many adolescents become addicted to the intensity of experiences that many times we would hope they would not engage in. How well do you tell the truth without blame or judgment? Are you practicing truthfulness, authenticity, and integrity as keys to the vision and intuition? Or are you engaged in abandoning yourself due to your need for love, approval, keeping the peace, maintaining balance and harmony? Wow. How well do you tell the truth without blame or judgment? And find the way of the teacher. How well are you open rather than attached to outcomes? Are you affected by the 6 categories of loss? The loss of attachments, the loss of your turf, the loss of structure, the loss of future, the loss of meaning, the loss of control, which is such a part of the process of addiction, the process of losing self? Or are you seeking wisdom and objectivity through communication and information, learning how to trust and be comfortable with states of not knowing? I like that concept. How comfortable am I with states of not knowing, especially when I'm sitting across from a recovery and I have no clue on what they're thinking and how they're thinking, but want so desperately to know sometimes. Got stuff? Your stuff might be in the realm of culture shock. Just continue to help us to think about cultural responsiveness. For example, what are my initial attitudes when I am confronted with cultural differences? Is my initial attitude on the left-hand side in the green openness, acceptance, and trust? Or are my initial attitudes suspicion, fear, and prejudice? When you look at the cultural differences, what are the reactions that are inevitable to cross-cultural encounters? Cross-cultural encounters speak to cultural differences. We're not all alike. So many times when we have these cross-cultural encounters, we experience frustration, confusion, tension, and embarrassment. Those aren't bad things. We make them bad as a result of how we choose to deal with them. That's where the choices come in. The coping strategies that are helpful are we observe, we listen, and we inquire. That's so much like the 3 legs of the stool. Observe, listen, and inquire. Or we react. And in reacting, we criticize, we rationalize, and we withdraw. And the results of the coping strategies of listening, observing, and inquiring is we build rapport and understanding. And the results of the reactive responses where we criticize, rationalize, and withdraw are alienation and isolation. So again, folks, got stuff here? How well do you manage cultural differences? How well are you aware of and open to what differences are in our cultures with each other? Closing thoughts, comments, and questions. Thank you so much for being here. Any closing thoughts that anyone might have? We've got about a minute. I appreciate the feedback. Again, these are opportunities for collaborative learning, I would hope. And again, I'm sharing what I've learned, and in no way am endorsing this is the only way to think about these things, but I'm hoping it provides you with a framework to think about how you might think about discovering and managing your stuff. I've got some people typing. Good webinar. You can consult with Stacy relative to the slides. Oh, I appreciate your time as well, Jeff. Good to hear, Mike. Thanks for being here. Thank you all. And I hope this did offer an opportunity of self-examination. Slides are available for those who are part of the membership series.